Hey folks, Eric Smith here, radio voice of the Toronto Raptors, NBA host and analyst with Sportsnet. I want to shout out my man Chris and 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Even though I know, Chris, you're not a Toronto sports guy, you've got those allegiances to the Detroit, Windsor area, the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Tigers, and for some reason the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm still trying to figure that one out, Chris. Why'd you drop the Lions? Why'd you drop the Lions, Chris? There's got to be a reason there. We'll have to fill everybody in on that another time, I suppose. But again, check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP every Wednesday and Friday. It's on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Live, you name it. Chris is everywhere across all platforms. And if you just want to check out the audio version, maybe you're going out for a walk and you just want a podcast or something, you can get it on Apple, Google Podcasts as well, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Radio Public. So again, I told you, Chris is everywhere. And I'm hoping that I can be a guest on the show at some point this summer as well. Wednesdays and Fridays, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Check it out.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP on this Monday, September 6th. Happy Labor Day to everyone in Canada and the States. And I'm looking forward to my guest tonight. His name is Manny Paiva. I hope I pronounced it right. He's the communications officer for the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority, and he's also a longtime OHL play-by-play announcer, first for the London Knights, the Owen Sound Platers Attack, and the Windsor Spitfires, and he was also a volunteer with Rogers TV for many years as well. And I'm really looking forward to having Manny on my show tonight. And if you guys give me 1 minute, I will bring Manny on, and we're going to talk a little OHL and some Windsor Spitfires, and maybe a little bit about his job with the Border Authority and being a part of the new Gordy, Howe International Bridge, which is being built from Windsor going across to Detroit, and hopefully it'll be open in a couple years. And I'll ask Manny what the time frame is for that. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to bring Manny on right now. Hi, Manny. How you doing?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Can you hear and see me okay?
You look great. I hope you can do the same. It's a beautiful night in Windsor, Ontario. The cicadas are screaming here, and I'm enjoying some sports behind me. But I'm more than willing to take a little time out from watching sports to hang out with you, CDP.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, you're right. The weather today was perfect in the 70s, and it's sunny here. This morning when I was working my midnight shift, we had a bad storm and a lot of rain here. But majority of the day, the weather's been really good, and I don't blame you for being outside right now.
Hey, it's a great night, especially with the end of summer coming around. It's Labor Day weekend. You have to take advantage of every opportunity you can being outdoors.
Yes, and it's hard to believe it's Labor Day. Isn't it funny? Where did June, July, and August go?
Yeah, really. Where did it go? I'm excited about this time of year because I'm getting a pool set up in my backyard. So that's why I enjoy spending time outdoors. I know my two girls are excited. I know my wife's excited, and maybe they'll let me use the pool whenever it's done.
Oh, that's nice. You just getting this. When did you guys just start? Just recently?
They actually haven't started yet. They start the pool work in 3 days. So excited about that.
What's the process? How long does it take to do a pool? I guess if it's underground or in-ground.
So this is an in-ground pool, and depending on the weather and the setup, it could take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. So we're hoping on the shorter end that it'll take 2 weeks, but you never know. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll have it all ready to go for next year, I guess.
Yeah, the thing about the pool market, and I think it's the same for every other community in Ontario, is that you have to wait several months to get a pool installed. We booked in December. It's now September. 9 months later, we're finally able to get some pool work done. So the fact that it's taken that long, we're excited that it's finally just getting underway.
I would say it was probably delayed due to the pandemic as well.
That might have played a factor into it. I think more so, Chris, with the fact that the pandemic has forced people to make more home improvements. Mm-hmm. After all, they can't really travel anywhere. So pools are a hot commodity, and there's a bit of a waiting list.
Oh, it's good to know that you got a pool. I'm always looking for friends with pools. Just kidding.
Come on down.
I'd like to come down to Windsor because I haven't been to that the WFCU Center, and I've made friends with guys from the Windsor Express. The gentleman's the one coach is Neil Foreman, and the announcer is one of their announcers, Aaron Sanders. I've befriended on there too, and he's a really good guy. So I told them one day I'll have to come down to Windsor for an Express game, and I would like to catch a Spitfires game as well. Unfortunately, the Storm won't be in Guelph, or the Storm won't be in Windsor this year because the OHL is keeping. I actually no, I think Guelph will be in Windsor. It's the
Guelph
Eastern.
will be in Windsor.
Yeah. Pardon me, I made a mistake. They're not going to any Eastern Conference cities this year.
That's right. So the Western Conference teams will play each other, and the Eastern Conference teams will play each other. So
Yes.
we're a little bit disappointed here in Windsor that we won't get to see Shane Wright, for example, who should be the first overall pick in the NHL draft, because Kingston being in the Eastern Conference, many fans in Windsor and Guelph and London and Kitchener and Owen Sounds, they will not be able to see Shane Wright. So a little bit disappointing about that. But hey, we did get a chance to see him last year, and he looks like a fantastic talent.
And he's only, what, 15 years old? 15, 16?
Well, when he got into the league, yeah, he was given the special status to be allowed to play in the Ontario Hockey League. And soon he'll be able to put his skill to use in the National Hockey League. There's no doubt about that. I remember watching him play in Kingston last year, and even as an underage, he was the best player on the ice. He was fantastic. Future looks bright for that young man.
And I was going to say, I miss the Ontario Hockey League as well. I was just getting used to volunteering with Rogers TV here in Guelph as a camera operator when everything got shut down. So I'll be doing my first preseason game with Rogers on September 24th. And I told my producer, Neil White, who's a good guy, I said, you guys might have to give me a little more training because it's been a year and a half. My last Storm game was February 26, 2020, just before the pandemic struck.
It's been a long time. I know training camps being open this weekend across Labor Day weekend in the Ontario Hockey League. There's a lot of excitement, not only from OHL teams and OHL organizations that they can get back onto the ice, but the fan base excited to see hockey again. After all, it was March 2020, the last time that we saw Ontario Hockey League action, right?
Yeah, and the Guelph Storm are still the defending OHL champions from 2019, and I'm glad they're still the champs, but this isn't the way anybody wanted to see it like that. And actually, I think the Storm are going to be a whole lot different than they were back then. I believe I was talking to Tony Sexton in person a couple weeks ago from the Guelph Today, who covers the Storm, and he said there's going to be up to 13 rookies on the Storm this year.
Wow, that's a lot of turnover, and I'm sure Guelph won't be the only team that has to deal with that turnover. Windsor has a few more bodies coming back, but I think Windsor is disappointed that 2019-2020 season ended in a pandemic, because that was a really good hockey team. They had Jean-Luc Foudy and Will Cooley, who were top NHL prospects that draft. They had some really strong overage candidates. Luke Boca was the captain of that team, heart and soul guy. Cole Purbu could put the puck in the net. Connor Corcoran was a very heads-up defenseman, and they had Kari Piroinen and Xavier Medina in goal. Medina is back with Windsor. Will Cooley is back, but Jean-Luc Foudy, with that new rule in the American Hockey League, he's played 20 games in the American Hockey League, so he can stay in the AHL. OHL fans may not see Jean-Luc Foudy for this upcoming season because of that new rule.
And I was going to say, the Storm were supposed to be in a total rebuild that season, and Nico Dawes just came out of nowhere to become the OHL goalie of the year. And I was thinking if the Storm got into the playoffs, they might have been a tough out because as well in the OHL playoffs, if you have a hot goalie, you can win a couple rounds or go far.
Well, covering Ontario Hockey League for over 25 years now, I've seen that firsthand. And there's no better example of that than Michael DiPietro. Even though Windsor was knocked out in the first round of the 2017 OHL playoffs, they still hosted the Memorial Cup. And as hosts, they were able to play in that tournament, even though they were eliminated in the first round. Michael DiPietro stole the show. The Vancouver Canucks prospect was fantastic and backstopped the Spitfires to that Memorial Cup championship, their third such championship in less than a decade, and that was in 2017. And sure, there were other great players on that team, Gabe Vilardi, Mikhail Sergachev, Jeremy Bracco, but Michael DiPietro really put the team on his back in that tournament.
I was going to say, this is just my opinion as a Guelph Storm fan. Of course, the London Knights have been great the last 20 years. The Knights have been kind of like a mini dynasty in the OHL, and they won their 2 Memorial Cups. I don't think the Windsor Spitfires get enough credit for their 3 Memorial Cup championships since 2009, including back-to-back. You know this, Manny, how hard it is to win 1 Memorial Cup, but let alone to win back-to-back and then a third one within a decade. That's just amazing. To me, that's a dynasty.
Yeah, if you ask the Windsor Spitfires, they will tell you that it's not easy. And name me another team that has done that in the last 20 years, and you can't, obviously.
Nope.
So the Windsor Spitfires are a proud organization. They develop some top talent from the Ontario Hockey League that go on to play in the NHL. There's a long list of players. I mentioned Miguel Sergachev. He's won back-to-back Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You can go all the way back to Taylor Hall. You can go all the way back to Adam Henrique. There's some pretty strong players who have played in this Windsor organization who have achieved success at the next level. And the Spitfires are very proud of that. And further to your point, I followed the Owen Sound Attack in 2011 when they won the OHL championship. They did not win the Memorial Cup, partly because they had a couple players who suffered concussions. It just so happened to be their best players that suffered concussions in that tournament, Joey Hishin, Garrett Wilson, to name those 2 players. But it just shows you how difficult it is to win a Mem Cup.
Well, and Guelph's been to 6 Memorial Cups, and the last 2 have been hard. The 2019 team, the comeback kids, the reverse sweep of the Knights, beating Ottawa. I really thought the 19 Storm team was the best team they ever had, along with the 14 team. But it just shows you the Memorial Cup tournament. It doesn't mean the best team necessarily wins. It's the team who's playing the best hockey at that time, and it's a really quick tournament.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the fact that it's a 2-week tournament, basically, 10 days basically is the tournament. You have to be rolling at the right time. Matthew Barzal, we see how he is performing in the National Hockey League right now with the New York Islanders. He carried Seattle into the Memorial Cup in 2017 in Windsor, but that Seattle organization had nothing left in the tank after going through the WHL playoffs. And they were exited early from the Memorial Cup in 2017, which was unfortunate because that was a really good hockey team led by Matthew Barzal, who is really putting on a show with the Islanders in the NHL.
Well, I'm just hoping one day Guelph can get the Memorial Cup back because it's been a long time. 1986, when the Guelph Platers came out of nowhere under Jacques Martin and Gary Roberts and Steve Gornett and Kerry Huffman to win the Memorial Cup out in Portland. And then 3 years later, they moved to Owen Sound. And then, you know what? That move might have been the best move to happen because Owen Sound's obviously a great OHL city. And then the Storm came via Hamilton, and it's worked out well for both cities.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Owen Sound is that it is a true hockey hotbed. It's got a long history. In Owen Sound, hockey has a long history from Harry Lumley, which the arena is named after. Harry Applecheeks Lumley played in the National Hockey League. So there's a strong hockey tradition in Owen Sound from the Owen Sound Grays, for example. We're a strong junior hockey organization there as well. The Owen Sound Mercuries have a long history in the city of Owen Sound. So for them to secure an OHL organization from the Holiday family, that was a big first step. They didn't do very well on the ice in the first few years, but since that 2011 OHL championship, they've been a competitive hockey club, and them and the London Knights are the only teams to have 30-plus wins in 10 straight seasons, which says a lot about the consistency of the success of that organization.
And the Storm here had 23 straight years in the playoffs as well until after I think it was after the 14 season where the 16-17 where they went had their 2 bad years, but the Storm have been pretty consistent as well since coming to Guelph in 1991. Same with Owen Sound and same with London. And like I said, I'm looking forward, Manny, to the return of the OHL. And I think I can't speak for you and others, but I think I'm going to appreciate it more than before.
Yeah, I think all fans will appreciate that when you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? Isn't that a song? And,
That's true.
The fact that we've missed the Ontario Hockey League for basically almost a year and a half, as a junior hockey fan, I've missed it. And I know many other people have missed junior hockey, and it'd be great to see it. Fingers crossed that they'll be able to get a full season in starting the beginning of October.
Okay. Are you just let me know if you're pressed for time? I just have a few questions I was going to ask you. Is that okay?
Shoot. No, go right ahead.
Okay, no problem. The first one I wanted to ask you is, can you tell my audience just a little bit about yourself? When did you decide that you wanted to pursue a career in media, broadcasting, and doing some play-by-play work in color analyst?
Well, when I was in high school, Chris, I was playing sports. Granted, my parents said I could only play one sport at the time, so I decided to play soccer. And I wasn't the greatest skater on the ice, so I really could not play hockey. But I was really committed to soccer. I love soccer. I love basketball. But I decided to go the soccer route. And while I was in high school, I started writing for the local newspaper and submitting articles on behalf of what the high school sports teams did. And that really got me a good taste of media. And then as I was deciding my career path, I was like, what can I do in the future that allows me to have this passion for sports, continue this passion for sports? And I thought broadcasting and play-by-play. There were times, for example, where, I'd be playing ball hockey or another sport, and I would be pretending I was the announcer as a kid, talking about whether it was baseball, whether it was soccer, whether it was hockey, whether it was football, and just announcing as I was playing. And then, I had a passion for that, and I thought I would pursue that at the next level. Found that I could pursue that, and I decided that I'm going to try to make a career out of it. Went to Fanshawe College, which has a fantastic broadcast journalism program. Learned there that only 10% of the journalism jobs in the country are actually sports jobs. So I knew that I had to expand my knowledge past sports and into news and other elements of the broadcasting field. And I was able to graduate. While I was at college, I worked for Rogers TV in London, called some London Knights games, and worked part-time in London before I was able to move to Owen Sound and work part-time in Owen Sound. And that was on purpose because they did have an OHL team, and I wanted to go to another OHL market and see if I can get involved in the Ontario Hockey League that way. And I was able to, fortunately, and the rest is history.
I was going to say, I had a couple guests on from the London Knights a few months ago, Mike Stubbs and Jim Van Horn. And was Jim one of your teachers in Fanshawe College at the time or not?
Yeah, so Jim actually runs the program now at Fanshawe College, and he does a tremendous job. Back when I was in school, he was just one of the professors. He actually taught sports broadcasting. He was part of the team of professors there that encouraged all of the students. I think at the time I was a first year, and I was the 6XFM is the station that they run at Fanshawe. And Fanshawe is a little bit different. It's not just an in-house radio station. It's actually a public radio station that you can get in your car or at home or what have you. And the students were in charge of the radio station. And I was fortunate enough, and I think one of the few, and I don't know if it still exists, I think was the first student to be able to broadcast high school hockey games in London as a first-year student. Normally that was given to second-year students, but I was able to do play-by-play as a first-year student. And that was a nice feather in my cap. That really told me that, hey, that you're pursuing the right career. And Jim was a big part of that, as well as the other props. Bob Collins, Brian Robel, John Wilson was there as well. So Gord Harris was another prop at the time at Fanshawe College, and that was a great experience.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to Jim, and he treated me like he had known me for 20 years. And same with Mike Stubbs, too. I said, even though I'm a Storm fan and you're a Knight fan and there's a rivalry, I said, you guys are two of the best in the business. And like I said, now when the Storm play the Knights, I'm going to look at the Knights a little differently when you get to know people from other organizations. Because as a fan, you're like, I don't like that team or whatever. But then when you get to meet people that are associated with that team, you kind of have a more of a respect for that other franchise.
Yeah, Mike and Jim are true pros. They're true professionals, great guys. Mike's one of the best in the business, to be quite honest. And he does a great job with London. And you won't find a nicer guy than Jim Van Horn. I'll tell you that right now. Jim's one of the nicest guys that you will ever meet.
Yes. And he's been very encouraging of what I'm trying to do too, because I'm trying to get into radio at my age. And he just told me to keep plugging away at my podcast and keep building contacts and keep volunteering with Rogers TV and keep learning and we'll see what happens. And I'm hoping to get a radio internship at one day as well.
I think that's fantastic. The one thing that I've learned in my life, not necessarily a career, but through myself, through some of my best friends, is that if you have a passion for something, follow it, because what you will realize is you'll find that it's not a job, right? It won't feel like a job if you're following your passion and you're doing something that you love. It won't feel like a job. It'll feel so natural that it's something that you will enjoy doing, and you won't have to work so much in your life.
I agree. And like I said, I had to work at this, and I just got to continue to improve on it. And I've been very lucky getting guests from the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, ESPN come on. And I just tell people, I reach out even to people like yourself and Mike Stubbs and Jim and Mike Farwell, and just tell them what I'm doing. And everybody in your industry, Manny, has been really great and supportive of what I'm trying to do.
Mike Farwell, another great guy.
Yes.
Chris Pope and Kitchener, they're great guys. Like, the one thing about this industry, Chris, some of my best friends have worked in the industry. That's how I met them, through this industry. Matt Dumichel, John Rashad. I host a podcast with them now called For Future Considerations. They're among my best friends, and I met them through this industry. I think sometimes people don't realize that what makes the journalism industry, the broadcast industry, so great is the people that you meet, whether it's the people that you work with or the people on the street that you interview or the stories that you tell about the people that you meet. That's what makes the industry so great. It's the people. Fred Wallace, who's the voice of the Owen Sound Attack, who's been the voice of the Owen Sound OHL franchise since they moved from Guelph in 1989. He is a true professional, someone that I'm so thankful that I can call one of my friends. He's fantastic. I'm down here in Windsor now. I've been fortunate enough to work at AM 800, a legendary radio station in Windsor, as well as CTV in Windsor. And one of the guys that I've met, Steve Bell, who's now been returned as the voice of the Windsor Spitfires. A fantastic guy. It's the people that make the industry.
I'm learning that right now. And even with Rogers TV, Manny, everybody there has been great with me because I had no camera work or broadcasting experience when they took me in as a volunteer. And they've been very patient with me. And I just want to keep doing the camera work as well and learning more and getting better and stuff like that. And I realize too, Manny, doing a podcast doesn't mean I'm in the industry yet. I'm just right now trying to just improve and get better. And one thing I've learned too is that ad-lib a little more on here, and also speak to your guests like you're having a conversation outside or at a restaurant or something like that, instead of having it all scripted in that.
Yeah, just have a general conversation. I think that's what we do on our podcast for future considerations is we just pretend we're sitting at a bar and talking sports, or sitting at a restaurant and talking sports with people around you. And sometimes that's the best way to tell a story. In your case, Chris, I encourage you to continue to practice. And this is a great format for you to practice on. You know, keep telling stories, keep interviewing people, practice your ad lib skills. You're right. Not everything needs to be scripted, and keep plugging away at it.
Definitely. And like I said, I'm just glad to have you on. And my next question I was going to ask you, I have learned to improve my listening skills too, because sometimes you ask a guest a question and they can answer five more that you're going to ask. But the next one I was going to ask you, you already answered the school part with Fanshawe College in London. Did you have any mentor or mentors when you were first starting out, Manny?
I didn't really have a mentor at Fanshawe College, although I mentioned the profs already, the people that really helped me along the way to help me hone my skills. I mentioned Bob Collins, Jim Van Horn, John Wilson, Cord Harris, Brian Rebell. But the one guy who put me over the edge was a counselor at my high school, Strathroy District Collegiate Institute. His name was Stu Bolton. And Stu, he knew that I was humming and eyeing over the broadcast career, whether I wanted to do it or not. And he was doing the PA announcing for the Strathroy Junior B Blades, and now known as the Strathroy Rockets. And they were in a playoff game against some team. I couldn't tell you who they were playing. But the arena was packed, small town arena in Strathroy, my hometown. And it was an excellent game. Late in the third period, Strathroy scored a huge goal to take the lead. I was hanging with him in the press box. He just handed me the mic and he said, "Why don't you announce the goal?" And I said, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah." And here I am, a 17-year-old kid. He said, "Announce the goal." And I did it in my own way. The building erupted. I got this huge rush and I'm like, that's it. This is the career that I'm going to do it. It put me over the top. I was contemplating it. That experience put me over the top. And so I credit Stu Bolton a lot. He's no longer with us, but I do remember that man. He was a great man.
I was gonna say, when I was younger, Manny, I played sports and I had a passion for sports, but I didn't have this technology, and I kind of wish, in hindsight, this technology was around 20, 25 years ago, because I think I would have taken a different career path. But like you said before, it's never too late, and I've already talked to some people in other careers and people that are in comedy that are actually much older than we are, and it's never too late to switch careers.
Never too late. Follow your passion because it'll feel like you'll never work a day in your life.
Okay. Next question I wanted to ask you, Manny. What was your first job in radio and TV again? Was it Owen Sound, I believe?
That was my first real job. So when I graduated from Fanshawe College, I worked in London for a little bit. So I had a part-time job at a radio station in London, and I also worked for Rogers TV in London in the summer of '94. So I actually started nights games in '94, broadcasting on the local cable network in London. Got a chance to meet some great people: Gary Agnew with the Knights, Nick Stajdahar, Jason Allison. So some Maple Leaf fans will remember Jason Allison. He also played with the Bruins, but that's a long time ago. That was a long time ago. So that was in '94, and then I was, because my hours were so limited in radio and I was basically volunteer work in London, I also worked at a magnesium factory in Strathroy until I moved to Owen Sound in October of 1995. So I always say, even though I worked in London in radio and television, that experience in Owen Sound was really my first foray into broadcasting. But I remember that 94 team for the London Knights, nobody was coming back. Stajdahar didn't come back. Allison didn't come back. I broadcast the first few games of that London Knights season. That was the year that they set the record for most losses in a season in the Ontario Hockey League. I just so happened to disappear to get out at a good time. I got out in October and went to Owen Sound. Of course, the Knights are a great storied franchise now, but At the time, there were some issues there in London, and I'm thrilled as a Strathroy native, and I used to go to London Knights games all the time at the old London Ice House.
Or the Gardens, the London Gardens.
London Gardens, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So it was the Ice House back in the day, and I was able to see some great games there. Brendan Shanahan playing with the Knights back in the day. So it was a thrill for me to be broadcasting games for them until I moved to Owen Sound, and that was a huge thrill for me as well when Fred allowed me to start broadcasting games with them in Owen Sound. And I met some great people along the way in Owen Sound, which I'm sure we'll talk about too.
Okay. My next question I wanted to ask you, because this affects me and a lot of other people. How much did your volunteering with Rogers TV assist in your career?
It assisted a great deal, to be quite honest with you, Chris, because I was able to hone my craft. Like, if I look back at some of the games that I initially did in London, my wardrobe was terrible in London, a terrible wardrobe. But then in Owen Sound, I really was green, with my interviewing skills. So by volunteering with Rogers TV, I was able to practice. I was able to get better. Practice makes perfect. It was sort of learning on the job, so to speak. So it assisted a great deal. And I went from, hosting the OHL games and some other games. I did Junior B hockey. I did Junior B lacrosse. I did basketball, high school football, some baseball. Some softball Canada tournaments. I was able to host that on Rogers TV as well while I worked at the radio station in Owen Sound. I still have a VHS tape of me hosting the Ontario Golf Open in 1994 in London. I still have a tape of me interviewing Cassie Campbell at a women's hockey tournament in London back in 1993, 1994, whenever that was. So I always put my hand up and said, yes, I will do everything, because I knew every time I opened the mic or turned on the mic or was in front of the camera that it would improve. I would learn. I would learn on the job, and by practicing this, it would allow me to be a better broadcaster and improve my skill set. So I would say volunteering really helped me along the way.
I was going to ask you this too. On this, even to this day, when I do camera work before a game, I get a little bit nervous. But did you ever get nervous before you went on air a little bit, or were you kind of it didn't bother you at all?
Early on, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was nervous. After all, in the Ontario Hockey League, I was talking to Jason Allison, Nick Stadstahart, Andrew Brunette, Wayne Primo, some of the other OHL stars, Jason Spezza. I was talking to Brian Kilray. I was interviewing Brian Kilray before games, and here I am, like a 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, and you're interviewing legends in the game. Of course, you're going to be a little bit nervous, but after a while, you're able to learn to control your nerves a little bit and just focus on the job. Like one of my best friends, Matt, watched a replay of an OHL game on YouTube last season. I was interviewing Adam Mayer in the intermission, and I looked terrible. I looked like a young kid next to Adam Mayer, who was a tremendous human being and a tremendous hockey player. But I cringed at some of the questions that I asked. But that whole process allowed me to be better, because you have to go through some stumbles. You have to go through some bad experiences to learn to be better, to learn to be a professional, to improve your craft.
And what I like about Rogers TV is exactly what you said. And even if you do make a mistake, from my experience is they don't jump on you. They teach you and tell you what you can improve on the next time, and they encourage you. And it's so nice to be in such an encouraging environment. And that's why I'd like to continue with Rogers for as many years as they'll have me back as a volunteer.
Yeah, I think Rogers is a great example of a place where you can really hone your craft and hopefully improve your craft, um, either as a volunteer or maybe even as a paid employee at Rogers, where hopefully that'll be a stepping stone to an even larger career in the broadcast field. And I met some great people at Rogers. Um, Bob Smith in London works at Rogers. He's fantastic. Mark Perry, I'm still in contact with at Rogers and Owen Sound. Uh, he's been fantastic through those experiences at Rogers and through the radio station. I've worked with some tremendous people who have also helped mentor me along the way. Tony Ambrosio, who now works at TSN, but he used to work at The Score. He used to work at Sportsnet. He was a great mentor. Fred Wallace, as I mentioned, was a great mentor. I've always learned some things along the way. You watch the professionals and you take a little bit from, like Bob Cole, or these days you may take something from Mike Emmerich or Joe Buck for people who are watching sports these days. That's good. You take a little bit of everything and you find somebody local in your market who you can bounce off, who you can work with, and help improve your skills that way.
Okay. The next question I wanted to ask you, Manny, are you still okay for time?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, no problem. I always check with my guests as well. How did you end up coming about working in Owen Sound with 560 AM there, and then doing the Owen Sound Platers attacks games? What got you into there?
So, as I mentioned, I was working very part-time in London.
London, yep.
Yeah, at CFPL, and also doing the volunteer at Rogers in London. And then the part-time opportunity in Owen Sound came about, and I moved there in October 1995. They were looking to expand their presence in Collingwood, the town of Collingwood, which is not far from Owen Sound, and that opened the door for me. And I worked part-time as a reporter, and then grew up there from weekend anchor, afternoon anchor, to weekend morning anchor, to weekday reporter, to weekday newscaster, to assistant news director and weekday newscaster reporter, to morning anchor, to news manager, to talk show host, to morning show co-host. And along the way, Fred Wallace, who I'd mentioned before, was the voice of the Owen Sound Platers, Owen Sound Attack games. When he was doing the games, he had a couple of guys that he would go on the road with. Dave Lord was one. After Dave Lord, it was Tony Ambrosio, who's fantastic. And then Dave Gross also. Dave Gross, tremendous storyteller. Fred Wallace, tremendous storyteller, tremendous broadcaster. He just knows so much about Owen Sound, about Owen Sound's OHL history, hockey history, and about the Ontario Hockey League. And Tony Ambrosio, a true professional, a great guy. You won't meet a nicer guy. As all these guys, Dave, Fred, Tony, who I'm talking about, fantastic guys, but they were true professionals. So when Fred was doing it with Tony, and Tony couldn't go and Dave couldn't grow, Fred allowed me to do the games with him. And that turned into a fantastic, almost 20-year career on the road with the Owen Sound Platers and the Owen Sound Attack. At the same time, I approached Rogers TV to say, hey, I'm working at the radio station, Bayshore Broadcasting, 560 CFOS. If you have an opportunity for me to do OHL games on TV, I'd volunteer my time. And there wasn't a conflict there between the radio station and Rogers TV. So very early on, I think it started in 96. I moved there in 95. So in 96, I started hosting the games down at ice level. Then I started doing color. And not soon after that, I started doing play-by-play. And the rest is history. Yeah.
I was going to say, Dave Lord actually did Guelph Plater games on 93.3 FM in Guelph when they did the Platers games for a little while, too. I know Larry Malotte's done them for the longest time, but there was a time where some of the Plater games were on the university radio station. And I remember Dave Lord, I think for 1 or 2 years, did Guelph Plater games.
Yeah, Dave was a great guy. When I moved in October 1995 to Owen Sound, he wasn't there long. I think he left Owen Sound shortly thereafter, and that's how Tony Ambrosio and Dave Gross started doing the games with Fred. But Dave's a great guy. Larry Malotte, a fantastic guy, one of the veterans in the Ontario Hockey League. have all the time in the world for Larry. He's fantastic.
And he's also a Red Wings fan like I am, and we don't like the Leafs, so me and Larry sort of have a few things in common.
Well, we won't hold that against you. After all, my Montreal Canadiens made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, 3 wins away. How did your Red Wings do, by the way?
They're in a rebuild. But you know what?
Yeah.
But Steve Yzerman has done some nice moves in the offseason, and I do think the Red Wings are on the right path. They got that young goalie from Carolina, and they got the Gulf Storm connection with the Red Wings and Bertuzzi and Fabry and Giovanni Smith and Plus Suter, who they got from the Blackhawks. So there is a Guelph connection with the Red Wings too.
Yeah, pipe dream. Don't worry, pie in the sky for you guys. As my buddy Matt says, he's bought into the hashtag Iser plan. Sounds like you have as well. I'm not into it just yet. I need to see more evidence, buddy.
Well, he did a great job in Tampa Bay, and it's just going to take. Hey, hockey is one of the sports. I was having talk with Matt Derry the other day, and I agree with him. Out of all the sports, the NFL is probably the easiest sport to rebuild quicker. And I agree with him about hockey, baseball, and basketball take a little bit longer for younger players to develop.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I would say basketball might be easier. I would tend to lean that way just because you look at what the Detroit Pistons did. They drafted first overall, got Cade Cunningham.
Yes.
They've made a ton of moves over the last 2 years, and they may be a playoff team now all of a sudden when just 2 years ago they were one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference in the NBA.
Well, Dwayne Casey is a good teacher, and even when he was in Toronto, he was good with the young players like DeRozan and Lowry and the young Pascal Siakam. And unfortunately, he got fired, but it worked out well because Nick Nurse did a good job with the Raptors in 19, and then Casey came to Detroit. And I really do think the Pistons, cross their fingers, I think they're on the right path. I think all the Detroit teams, except for the Lions, are on the way up.
Well, that's good. I'm an Eagles fan, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, my God. So am I. A huge Philadelphia Eagles fan.
February 4th, 2018 will go down in history for a great organization after we won the Super Bowl.
I had no idea, Manny, and I was in shock after that Super Bowl because I expected Brady to rally the Patriots and win it. And when the Eagles won, I was listening to Merle Reese and Mike Quick, and I was like, oh, my God. It was like one of my greatest sports moments.
As soon as they did kick off, Chris, I knew we had it in the bag. Don't worry about it.
And I've been lucky enough to see the Eagles play in Green Bay and Buffalo and win. And I was supposed to go to a game this year at the Link, but obviously it's probably going to be another year because I've never been to an Eagles home game in Philly. And that's great that you're an Eagles fan. You might have to tune into my podcast Saturday because I've got a couple guys from Philly coming on, and we're going to do an Eagles preview podcast.
You let me know, and I will flood your comment section with
that's
questions.
Great. Yeah, and the one guy, his name is Jamie. He's a Philly sports guy. He's like the Eagles' #1 fan. Paints his face. You would know him if you saw him on social media. And he loves the Eagles. And I'm going to have him and one of his co-hosts on. And we're going to talk Eagles. And one of my other friends, Mike Hogan, the voice of the Argonauts, is a huge Eagles fan too.
I know, Mike. Our Eagles brethren. We have to be tight here. We have to stick together.
Definitely. So we do agree on that. That's great. I had no idea about you, Manny, and I always learn something new from my guests.
Well, that's good, Chris. If this is your take home, that I'm the biggest Eagles fan, second biggest Eagles fan next to you, then this show is worth it.
Okay. All right. I'll just get into some more questions, Manny, and I'll wrap this up. My next one was going to ask you, how difficult was it to leave the Owen Sound market and then end up going to Windsor? Was it really hard for you to leave Owen Sound?
It definitely was. So I had been in Owen Sound for 21 years at that time when I left in 2016. It was at the end of June of 2016 where I decided to leave. And I started in Windsor, first at CTV in July 2016 and moved to AM 800 about a year later. So they gave me both portfolios. I started at CTV and then they said, why don't you take over AM 800 as well? So it was difficult to leave because when I started in Owen Sound in 1995, there were only 2 radio stations. And I'm proud to say through my hard work that I helped expand the company into 8 radio stations.
Wow.
So, and overseeing the newsrooms for 8 radio stations, it was my baby, so to speak. And that was difficult. The other thing was difficult is you make some great connections with the people in Owen Sound. I've mentioned how great this industry is with regards to the people and how it makes it such a big part of the industry. It was difficult to leave some of the people. And the third thing was, I was leaving the Owen Sound Attack, that team that I had followed, that I did broadcast games for, an OHL championship that I was able to broadcast a game with Fred on. So that was difficult. And there was no guarantee that I would still do OHL games when I moved to Windsor. But I decided that I needed a new challenge after helping the Bayshore Broadcasting grow, that I wanted another new challenge. I never led a television newsroom at the time. Even though I was on television, I didn't really have that experience of leading a newsroom. So I wanted to lead a television newsroom, and I got that opportunity at CTV. And they said, hey, your radio experience, why don't you lead the AM 800 newsroom as well? So that was a great experience. It was difficult to leave, but I wouldn't change it. I always say you go through these experiences because you not only grow as a professional, you grow as a person. It also made it easier that I did have some friends. My best friend Matt is in Windsor, so I was able to see him, and so it wasn't a complete unknown. I did know some people in Windsor when I was moving to it, so that made it a little bit easier. My wife Shannon is from the Leamington area, so she had family down here, so that made it easier. From a personal perspective, it was also difficult because my two girls, Abby and Sophie, they were born in Owen Sound. They had friends in Owen Sound. As a father, you always want to do good for your kids. So it was difficult to make that decision because I didn't want them to leave their friends. I still think they miss their friends, but they've made some new friends, and hopefully I've had some really good experiences being in Windsor now.
Okay. Just before I ask the next question, just got a couple of comments on here, and I think they're from guys on Twitter. So I just wanted to, Manny, you've covered some great moments in OHL hockeys. What are your favorites?
Oh, Matt, great question. Thanks for tuning in tonight. So I have some tremendous memories in the Ontario Hockey League. Again, it's the people that you meet. I can honestly say that I was a really good friend of Dan Snyder before he passed away. Good old Elmira native, and his family is fantastic. You meet some great people, and the people that I've covered have been really good friends. The one moment that really sticks out, well, there are actually two moments that really stick out for me in the Ontario Hockey League: the 2011 OHL Championship, won by the Owen Sound Attack. They beat the Mississauga St. Mike's Majors in 7 games in 2011. We just celebrated the 10-year anniversary of that. And nobody expected Owen Sound to do anything that year. In fact, some people had picked Owen Sound to miss the playoffs completely. Not only did they finish first in the Western Conference, they still didn't get any respect in the playoffs. And then they got to the final against Mississauga. Nobody gave them any respect in the final. Mississauga went up 2-0 in that final series. Yet Owen Sound kept clawing back, and then they won in Mississauga in Game 7 in overtime in what was a tremendous hockey game. I remember covering it not only for Rogers TV at the time, but mostly for the radio stations that took over.
I think we just lost you there for a second, Manny. I could see, I just can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, cool. Good. Yeah.
So, as I was saying, that Game 7 and that OHL experience was fantastic because nobody gave Owen Sound any credit. But the fans were so behind their Owen Sound team that they went in droves by the thousands to Mississauga to watch the hockey game, that I coined the term at the Hershey Center, Bayshore South, and that stuck for the series. And it really, truly was Bayshore South, especially for that Game 7 of the OHL final, which was fantastic. The other OHL memory that I have is the 2017 Memorial Cup in Windsor, when the Spitfires won the Memorial Cup. Again, nobody gave them a chance to win. They were eliminated in the first round, as I mentioned earlier. but they beat St. John, they beat Seattle, they beat Erie, and then they beat Erie again in the final. And that experience for Windsor to win on home ice in their own barn in front of thousands of fans, and I was able to go on the ice and do the post-game show with the players, with the coaches, with the GM on the ice as part of the radio broadcast, was a tremendous moment.
Okay. That was a good question by Matt. And let's see, my other friend Mark, good guess. And then I had Matt. Eagles are overrated. He must be a Dallas Cowboys fan, Matt.
Either that or a Lions fan. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Speaking of that, do you have a minute? Because I wanted to show a clip off of YouTube that radio call that Fred Wallace and you did, just like you said, for the 2011 Attack Championship.
Sure. I always love reliving that moment.
Okay, it's just I got it off YouTube. This is a great thing about this StreamYard. I can do video clips.
Gabriel Stager, all wearing jersey. Heelish wins it to Shemitz. His shot does not get through. Hits a body. Coming through his brace. Throws it in front. Maiden's right. Scores! The Ontario Hockey League Championship. Jared Maiden's on the doorstep. I don't believe it. The Hershey Center goes wild. Oh, I don't believe it. RHL champion. 22 years in the making. And the Owen Sound Attack win it in overtime. I don't believe it. Oh, baby.
Wow, that was a great moment.
Sorry, go ahead, Manny.
No, I just listening to that call again is tremendous. Like Fred, a true professional. Like he really could be a tremendous broadcaster at the international level if he wanted to. And just listening back to him, I learned to shut up quickly after that goal was scored. I was celebrating in the press box with Fred. The funny thing about that, when we were in the press box at the Hershey Center, is for some reason the security disappeared. And there were like 20 people behind us. And so there was a huge crowd of people in the press box as we were calling the game-winning goal. People were jumping on us and people were trying to high-five us all the time. Yet we were trying to be professionals on the air. Fred was tremendous with that call, and he's always a tremendous broadcaster. We had some chemistry there, and I quickly learned to shut up so everybody could hear Fred celebrate as well. It was a great moment. It might have been one of the slowest moving pucks into the net I've ever seen as far as game-winning goals go, but that was a tremendous moment, one that I will never forget, one of my favorites.
Well, Matt's question was perfect because I was wanting to lead into that video clip of you and Fred. And you're right, it sounded like an Owen Sound home game from those fans there too.
Yeah, Bayshore South. I don't know how many people can actually fit in the Hershey Center, but I would say 60-70% of the building were Owen Sound fans. In fact, I remember some Owen Sound fans that were disappointed because they thought they may be able to get tickets at the box office walking up. That wasn't possible.
I was going to say, and that's one thing about that, the OHL in that area, it has struggled. The Brampton Battalion ended up moving to North Bay. The St. Majors ended up, I think they went ended up going to Mississauga and becoming the Steelheads. The Ice Dogs ended up moving to Niagara. Do you think the OHL, honestly, Manny, can sustain themselves in that market in the Toronto area?
I think they can. It's not easy, but I really think that the key for them is what we've seen in other markets. They really need to be a hometown team. They really need to cater to the residents who live in their community. Look at Owen Sound. The residents are fully behind their team. If they can get the Mississauga residents fully behind the Steelheads, and I think they're trying that, that team will be able to succeed.
Okay. And I just got a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap it up. What was your most memorable news story you did with CTV Windsor, and some of your favorite personalities you worked with at CTV Windsor?
Well, when you mention CTV Windsor, it only starts with one guy. There's a great team there. I can mention everyone single by name. Everybody was fantastic. But Jim Crichton is the senior anchor for CTV Windsor, a true professional. I actually knew Jim before I moved to CTV Windsor. He is a consummate professional, a great anchor, and he really is one of my favorite people that I've met through the entire industry. Jim knows the importance of a story, what it means to the local community. And I think you need those types of people, whether it's an anchor, whether it's a reporter. You can tell when a reporter doesn't understand a story or doesn't understand the impact of their story. That wasn't the case for Jim or some of the other staff at CTV Windsor, whether it was Rich, whether it was Michelle, whether it was Sasha, who now works at CTV London, whether it was Stephanie, whether it was Chris, what have you. They're tremendous staff over there, and people that I still hope that I can call friends.
Okay. And then I just wanted to get into this question. It's not too hard. I just wanted to ask you, what is the latest with the Gordy Howe International Bridge? And can you just tell my audience just a little bit about your position with the WDBA, which is the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority?
Yeah, so I'm a communications officer with the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. So I branched out of the broadcasting industry, moved into communications. The thing that's similar between the two industries is that you're a storyteller. So my job with the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority is to tell stories about the construction of the bridge right now, whether it's the towers that are going up, whether it's the buildings that are being built on the port of entry in Canada or the US, whether it's about the work in Michigan to connect the Port Authority to I-75. That's my job, to write about it, take pictures of it, shoot video, edit videos, what have you, post to social media. That's my role. The Gordy Howe International Bridge will be an iconic bridge that will connect the countries of Canada and the US and the communities of Windsor and Detroit. This will be a bridge that is so important to the area because it is the busiest land border crossing in North America. And the cool thing about this bridge is that you can go to GordyHoweInternationalBridge.com and you can see for yourself some of the renderings, some of the drawings for this bridge. It will be a remarkable bridge that not only will the people in Windsor and Detroit that can be proud of, but the people in the US and Canada can be proud of, because it's going to look remarkable. It is slated to open at the end of 2024. Construction is well underway, and I'm looking forward to having it open.
I was going to say, and what's the status on the other bridge? Is the other bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, going to remain active, or is it going to be shut down? How is that going to work?
That's a good question. I, as somebody who doesn't work for the Ambassador Bridge or the Detroit Crossing, my understanding is the bridge will stay open. It is a 90-year-old bridge, so it's seen better days. The cool thing about the Gordy Howe International Bridge is that it will connect directly to the 401, the highway.
Wow.
So
okay.
you don't have to go through the city of Windsor, for example, to connect to the Ambassador Bridge. That's as a patron, not me speaking on behalf of Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority or anyone else, as somebody who's a Windsor resident who wants to travel to the U.S., especially if I'm coming from London or if I'm coming from Guelph, Chris, where you are, coming from Kitchener, coming from Toronto, to be able to stay on the 401 and just cross at the bridge with a bridge that uses modern technology, that be able to cross with ease. That's very attractive for me as a customer or as someone who's trying to cross the bridge into another country. That seems very attractive to me as a traveler.
Okay, last question on this. How many lanes of traffic on both sides of the Gordy Howe International Bridge?
So there's 6 lanes in total, 3 on each side. Okay. And it will have state-of-the-art technology at the ports of entry in Canada and the U.S. The best part about the bridge, though, that you can't do with the Ambassador Bridge, and I'm really looking forward to this, is you'll be able to ride your bike across the bridge, or walk across the bridge, or jog across the bridge. And that'll be a great experience, and that's something that you can't do at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for answering those questions and that. And I'll definitely have to check out the website as well.
Gordy, Howe, internationalbridge.com, Chris.
Definitely. And then I just got two more questions, but this one you've already answered the first part. So just quickly, can you just give me quick thoughts on the new Spitfires head coach, Mark Savard?
Yeah, so Mark Savard just announced his hiring 2 weeks ago. He was an assistant coach with the St. Louis Blues, and he's coached in minor hockey across Ontario. You obviously know that he is a Stanley Cup champion. He had a tremendous offensive career, and Bill Bowler, the GM of the Windsor Spitfires, feels that offensive talent can translate into coaching and help some of their young prospects grow and develop offensively. You know, I look at Ryan Abraham, who was last year's first round pick. He's a very young, skilled forward. I look at Wyatt Johnston, who was a first round pick of the Dallas Stars this year. First round pick of the Windsor Spitfires 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, I should say. He's a gifted forward who's got tremendous hockey IQ. And there's thought that Mark Savar can help improve his game offensively. I'm really looking forward to seeing Will Cooley, who's got a tremendous shot. I think he's already got a pro shot with the Windsor Spitfires, but I'm looking forward to seeing the impact of Mark Savard on him. They still have Jared Smith, who's an associate coach, who is also the director of player personnel for the Windsor Spitfires. He's had a tremendous impact on some of these young men, and I'm glad that he'll continue to have that impact. Andy Delmore, who's coached in various markets, played in the National Hockey League as well. He's also on the coaching staff with Windsor. I think he will be a big impact on these young men as well.
Okay. And just one more question and I'll wrap it up. Which players do you think on this Spitfire team could surprise? And for those that are outside Windsor, like me and Guelph, which players are there? Which players on the Spitfires could surprise? And for those to watch for this 21-22 team quickly.
So I don't think Will Cooley will surprise anyone because he's a tremendous offensive talent. Wyatt Johnston was a first-round pick of the Dallas Stars. Really looking forward to seeing him. But Pasquale Zito was a draft pick of the Detroit Red Wings in the 6th round. For those Red Wings fans who are watching tonight, he has a lot of confidence, and you really think he can up his game. He's one of those guys where I really thought it hurt him last year that they didn't play due to the pandemic. Daniel D'Amico, another forward who I really thought had his development hurt because of a lack of playing time last year. Matthew Maggio is another one. I'm really looking forward to those players taking the next step in the OHL.
Okay. And my last question I wanted to ask you, any advice for those, not just myself, looking for a career in broadcasting, either in TV or radio?
Follow your dream. You know, it's not an easy industry to get into. The industry is ever changing as well. So if you're going to make this commitment, commit all the way. You're not in it to make money. You're not going to make a lot of money, but if you have a passion for it, follow it. And what I would say is always put your hand up and say yes. Don't always get an experience, whether it's working weekends, working nights, working longer hours, always take that experience. And because you'll be able to hone your craft and improve your craft and get better as a broadcaster by always saying yes to those experiences.
Okay. And where can my audience find you on social media again, Manny?
I'm on Twitter at Paiva the Way. That's my last name, Paiva, the Way. I'm also on Instagram, Manny.Paiva, if you want to follow me on Instagram. But I encourage you to take part in another podcast for future considerations. It's a great podcast that I have with my friends, Matt and John. We talk sports, have a little fun. Follow us, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Anchor, or wherever you get your podcasts, and have a lot of fun with us.
When do you guys normally do it? Is it once a week, weekly show?
Normally once a week. We release on Wednesdays. Normally, sometimes on Friday. We call it the OT if we have an extra show.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check it out, and I'll mention it on my social media as well. I just want to say, Manny, I'm sorry I kept you over an hour, but thank you so much for coming on Live with CDP podcast tonight. I really appreciate Manny coming on, and I hope I can have Manny come back on again, and we'll talk more OHL and Windsor Spitfires. And the Spitfires do open up their 21-22 OHL season at home at the WFCU Center against the Sarnia Sting on Thursday, October 7th at 7 p.m. And I'm looking forward to the start of the OHL. And I think Windsor's going to have a very good, young, exciting team this year. And when I didn't know this about Manny, too. He's a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. And I'll have to maybe talk a little more Eagles football with Manny again in the future. So, and the Windsor Spitfire games, you can check them out on iHeartRadio. AM 800 CKLW in Windsor as well. So, like I said, guys, and you can check out the WindsorSpitfires.com website as well. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast tonight. And I do have another podcast coming up. This next Live with CDP podcast will be this Wednesday, September 8th at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. WGRZ Channel 2 in Buffalo anchor reporter Kelly Dudzik makes her second appearance on Live with CDP podcast this Wednesday night. I'm looking forward to talking to Kelly. And then Thursday at 4 p.m., I have longtime Blue Jays PA announcer Tim Langdon coming on talking about the Toronto Blue Jays and his career as their PA announcer since 2005. And then I do have a special podcast this weekend coming up. And I'm just going to put the gentleman's picture on here right now. 1 second. This Saturday, I'm going to do North of the Border Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Saturday, September 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Guest will be Jamie Pagli, Philly sports guy, and Al Parcero, his co-host from their podcast in the Philadelphia area, will be on Live with CDP, North of the Border podcast. We'll be talking and previewing the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles. So I really appreciate Jamie and Al Parcero, his co-host from his podcast, coming on, and we're going to talk about our beloved Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. The Eagles open up their regular season on Sunday, September 12th at 1 o'clock against Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons, which I'm looking forward to. So anyways, guys, I just want to say to Matt, thank you for watching. Mark, you're my number one viewer on here. Thank you for watching as always. And Matt, thank you again too for watching, and thanks for your kind words. Great conversation, Chris. Great question for Manny on here as well. So I really appreciate everybody watching live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and Twitch. And just 1 second, guys. And I'm just going to post how you guys can get my podcast on audio. Live with CDP podcast. The audio version is always downloaded onto Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and also my podcast is downloaded on audio on LinkedIn if you guys want to follow me on my LinkedIn page as well. And before I go, guys, you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. So I'm on TikTok at Live with CDP. I'm trying to get 1,000 followers so I can do my podcasts there as well. And again, guys, my Live with CDP merchandise podcast shirts are 15, coffee mugs are 15, and my new podcast hats are 18. Shipping is extra if you're out of the Gulf and out of the country area. So anyways, guys, like I said, I'm really looking forward to my next podcast on Wednesday at 7:15 with Kelly. And just to let you guys also know, CFL Labor Day game today, Hamilton 32, Toronto 19. The rematch this Friday, September 10th at BMO Field in Toronto on TSN's football, Friday night football as well. And I'm really looking forward to the Thursday night game as well. You got the world champion Bucks and Tom Brady taking on Dax Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and the Dallas Cowboys. Got to go for Brady and the Bucks because Dallas sucks. I'm an Eagles fan, so looking forward to that as well. So anyways, guys, I just want to say thank you all for watching Live with CDP podcast again live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and later on my audio versions with Google and Apple Podcasts, etc. So Anyways, guys, I'm going to call this a show. But again, I want to say thank you so much to Manny Paiva for coming on today. Who's been a long time OHL play-by-play color analyst on with the London Knights, the Owen Sound Attack, Owen Sound Platers, and the Windsor Spitfires. And he's also the communications officer for the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. And I hope to have Manny on my podcast again in the future and maybe talk some Philadelphia Eagles football and see how the Spitfires are doing in the OHL season as well. So, all right, guys, I just want to say thank you again for watching Live with CDP podcast, and we'll see you guys Wednesday night at 7:15 with Kelly Dudzik from WGR Channel 2 in Buffalo. Good night, guys.